Before we get into the actual writing, it would be good to say a few things about research and science, what that entails, how it's different from other activities. Uh, and before I do that, let me make a suggestion. If this is new to you, if you haven't done any of this kind of writing particularly, I would encourage you to try and find one or a few academic books. Doesn't matter too much what kind of field, what their subject or topic is. Try and see if you can find one or a few academic books and take 15 minutes or so to just scan through them. Not to read any of the content except perhaps the table of content, but have scanned through and have a look, get a feel for what makes these books different from, well, normal book or non-academic books. What's in there? What are the parts, especially at the beginning and at the end, that you notice that tell you something about what kind of writing this is? Scan through the table of content and see how the argument, how the presentation, whatever it is, has been structured, has been set up. Just take 50 minutes or so to get a feel for the academic writing that you hold in your hands. One reason to do this is that actually academic work, research, academic writing isn't fully learned through a presentation, through hearing about it. It's a set of skills that you need to pick up over time, that you need to develop, and that is why often academic work is learned in a sort of internship. You work with a scholar or a researcher, your supervisor, who will coach you and lead you through the process. And through the experience, you pick up how things are done in the academic world within your particular field of study. There's not really a shortcut for that. This talk is a first introduction. There's a paper that goes with it that includes some resources and gives you some of the main points that I'll be talking about in a very abbreviated form that may be of some help as you get started. But in the end, it's a set of skills. It's a way of doing things that you gradually learn and pick up as you get involved in academic work. Now, what is this academic work? Human beings are by nature curious. They like to experiment and play with things. Think of children. They're full of curiosity, wanting to discover and learn things in the world. Unfortunately, we lose some of that curiosity and that excitement of discovery as we grow older, most of the time, most of us anyway. And nevertheless, even as adults, often will enjoy making a new discovery. We'll still be trying things out and so forth. Now, how is science different from that? What makes research and scholarship in the academic sense different from that very normal, natural, human curiosity, that search to understand things? It's primarily its systematic nature, that scientists and scholars go about their research and investigations in a very thorough and systematic manner. They tend to have a methodology, and within different areas of science and scholarship, there are established methods and standards for doing a particular kind of research, for doing an experiment, for instance, in medicine or biology. There are clear guidelines, there are clear methods that one needs to know, that one needs to follow in order to do research in that particular area. And for biblical scholarship or the social sciences too, there are all sorts of methods that have been developed that are very rigorous and well-defined methodologies to obtain data about something or to put an idea, an hypothesis to the test. So it's this systematic nature, probably more than anything else, that makes science and scholarship different from normal investigation in everyday life. Part of this also is critical thinking, critical reflection. It's not just about the subject matter, but also taking a step back and thinking critically about the whole process and about our own thinking that we are applying to the subject. Are we thinking the right way about this? Do our arguments hold? Is the evidence that we think we have for something, is that sufficient? Could it be interpreted in a different way? Are there other explanations for what we are finding than the one we think is the right one? Are we making any mistakes or errors in what we are doing? Are we neglecting to consider something that would be vital? Critical reflection on the whole process, asking questions about the way we are doing things, and not just the subject itself, is also very much part of what makes science and scholarship what it is. And then a third element is in the writing. With every research project, with every scholarly investigation, the end result needs to be captured in writing, whether that's a journal article or a book or a thesis. It needs to be presented completely in a way that it's possible for other scientists or scholars in our field to read this and to know exactly what we have done. Again, the rigorous nature of this and the methodical way of doing things stands out. Someone else needs to be able to understand what we have done exactly, should in principle be able to repeat, to replicate the experiment, for instance, that we have engaged in, and come up with similar results, because we have defined and explained clearly and precisely enough what we have actually done, why we have done it, and then also how we went about working with the data and drawing conclusions from it, so that someone who reads this can follow along and fully understands how we come to our conclusions. A person may still want to argue with it, and that's fine, but he should be able to understand correctly what we have done and how we have come to our final conclusions. That's the task of the research report in whatever form that comes. And so for this, that's where the academic writing comes in, sort of toward the end of the research project, when it's time to to capture everything that's been done and accomplished in writing so that it becomes available to other scholars and in our field and other people who may be interested in our research.